Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today are two ladies from the Department of Social Services, the Child Protective Services branch of it. We're going to talk a little bit about Child Protective Services, what you do, what's happening, some programs. It's quite interesting, so pay attention, right? So with us here we have April White. She is the Family Services Supervisor, and we have Rachel Odem. She is a senior CPS worker. I asked her, said senior, said you've been there more than a year. She's been there 4 years, so that's a long time. It wears you down, I'm sure. I won't ask how long you've been there, because I've been a long time.
I'm only 21, and I still look like this.
There's a lot of people that run through the DSS every month, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what Child Protective Services, what's it all about, what you do, and what you come here to tell us.
Sure. So Rachel and I work under the child welfare umbrella. So we have the whole spectrum from family support, foster care, prevention, child protective services, foster care, and adoption. The whole spectrum.
Gosh, that's a lot.
Absolutely. Rachel specializes in child protective services.
Okay.
So we probably get an average of 50 to 60 CPS calls a month.
Wow.
About half of those are what we consider valid. So a valid CPS call means that the child is under 18, that the alleged abuser or neglector is a caretaker,
Okay.
that it happened in Warren County or they live in Warren County.
Okay.
And the biggest part is that it meets the definition of child abuse and neglect as Virginia Code.
Okay.
What I want to put out there from the beginning is let us figure that out. If you see something or you're concerned about something, call us. Let us figure that out. That's our job.
Right. Yeah.
But we cannot do our job without your call.
So when your parents give you that timeout or give you a little swat on the bottom, that's not child abuse?
Not
Very
necessarily,
fine line
yes.
in the state of Virginia.
Not necessarily, but again, if you're concerned about a child, call and let us figure that out.
I always say, let the kid says, I'm going to call 911. Here, let me dial you the number.
Right. And that's true. We never want to dissuade a child from being able to call 911. Can it be inconvenient, embarrassing? Sure. It's a valuable life lesson for a child.
For both parties
For
involved.
both parties, absolutely. So Rachel can give you a lot of information exactly about what is child abuse, what is child neglect, what does that look like in the state of Virginia. And we also have our biggest push right now is our prevention program. I guess what we really want people to know is CPS is not here necessarily to be a punitive thing. We are here for the protection of the child, but we want to strengthen the family. We want to shore up their resources. We want to reduce the risk of maltreatment. We don't want to be the boogeyman of parents. We want to be seen as a partner in helping you with your child.
The worst outcome would be breaking up the family.
Absolutely.
That's the worst.
We do everything we can, not only because we think that's a good idea or that's, we're so, that's our policy. That's the law. You have to make every reasonable effort to keep a family together.
Okay.
Sometimes you can't.
All right. So tell us a little bit about some of the programs where you're working on, or I know you had some things you wanted to make sure we got out to the public. So
absolutely. Well, I think our big thing we want to talk about is prevention.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about prevention?
Yeah, so prevention usually comes out of a CPS, or you can come into the department and request those services whenever. Prevention services are going to be your case management services, so referrals to Northwestern, National Counseling Group, all those places in town that help with issues in the family. And we can be that, I guess, that middle piece to get you there.
We're gonna help We're gonna help you navigate.
You're kind of like
system.
the resource center.
Absolutely.
Okay, that particular situation we got to go over here, and for that we got to go over here. And there's a lot of services, but they all kind of specialize in their own area.
Yeah, and so our caseworkers, they come out at least once a month to meet with you and see what your needs are and stuff like that. And then if that referral's not working, they'll send out another referral to a different agency, and it's to help reduce maltreatment and foster care prevention.
It sounds like all this is really like mental health in a way. It kind of falls under that. We're seeing that in the police department.
Absolutely.
They're saying, and they say the worst thing to go on is a domestic call. I'm sure that's probably the worst thing for you to show up at somebody's house. You're
right. And the pandemic did not help matters. It isolated people, and It's very, I give our clients a lot of credit. It is not easy to come to strangers and talk about your family, the most intimate part of your life. And we do our best to respect that, to be very open and honest and transparent with clients about this is what our responsibilities are.
Right.
And we want to work with you in a partnership, but when the rubber meets the road, children have to be safe. But we are child-centered, but family-focused.
It seems like to me it's almost like people wait too late.
Sometimes I think that's true.
When it really turns into something abuse or some sort of violent action happens, when we should have maybe, like you said, do some more prevention, be aware of the situations that are going on. So tell us a little bit more about this child welfare part that you handle.
So my job at the department is to investigate abuse and neglect allegations. So what that looks like could differ. So for neglect, you can see that you have inadequate supervision, like parents leaving their children home for extended periods of time without proper arrangements being made, or they're running the streets and they have no idea where they're at, or when they don't have food in the house, when you have children begging for food at school or stuff like that. So when you see those things, please call it in and let us know, so that way we can make the final call of whether or not we need to go in and out. And then the abuse ones, we don't see as much, but we do still see them, and they are going to be your discipline when it's too far discipline. The state of Virginia is a corporal punishment state, and so there's just that very fine line where if you leave a mark or a bruise, it becomes abuse for physical abuse for DSS.
Right. Well, you see that schools have a hard time, always are looking, they're the school teachers, you see the kids with bruises or cigarette burns or all sorts of, that's maybe an extreme case, but, you're always looking at that. And I notice when I go to the doctor, when I fell down the steps, they call you. Did your wife push you down? It's all, and they're all
mandated reporters.
They are. They're looking for people abuse, not just children. I mean,
and that happens with elders too.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have anyone from APS, Adult Protective Services, but we have vulnerable people across the age spectrum.
Yeah, people, like you say, if people they can carry it just a hair too much, and a lot of times alcohol's involved, and that seems like always the trigger or the source of some little extra effort that doesn't need to happen. So
I think one of the frustrating things for us is, in order to provide prevention services, they have to come to us, or we have to be court ordered.
Right.
Like, for example, if we get a CPS case and it does not really meet the definition, but it appears as if the family can use some help, I cannot just call them and say, hey, I heard that, you've been struggling.
Sure, yeah.
We don't have the authorities to intervene in people's lives that way unless we have a reason. What we have developed at our agency is just a very brief, vague letter that says, we got a call, it did not meet the definition, but it appears like you could need help. If you would be interested, please call us.
Right.
And I think we've had pretty good feedback from that. So this is a really great opportunity for us to say to the community, we are there for you. You do not have to wait until it gets so bad, like you said earlier.
Right.
Call us and let us help you navigate this. Even if it's just say, hey, did you try calling them?
Yeah, right. So like you said, a lot of times, when I was growing up, we always had the nosy neighbor.
Right.
We kind of like now, we don't pay any attention to our neighbors. So, sometimes you see something that you'll say, you see something, say something.
Yes.
And even if it's wrong, someone will get in there and figure it out. Sometimes you err on the side of caution nowadays, because, like you say, you just don't know. There's just so much between COVID and being isolated and schools.
Absolutely.
It's really
the economy. A lot of what happens is poverty, and we cannot. It's not a CPS case necessarily if it is poverty based.
Right. Well, I know it's amazing how many kids in school are into the breakfast program. I mean, it's just surprisingly how many kids show up that have to eat breakfast at school because they just don't have it at home. When I was growing up, or maybe later, I don't want to date myself, but anyway, we had that latchkey.
Right.
That was the big buzzword when I was, my kids were growing up. And again, right here, people get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, commute to the city.
Absolutely.
Kids have to get up. What age do you consider, when I was young, you could be 10, 12 years old, you're taking care of your brothers. Now it's like, 16-year-old can't take care of himself. It's just like we've changed.
Well, there's no specific. The code does not allow for a specific time that says you're 8 years old, you can be on your own.
Right.
We have guidelines that we follow, and it generally goes across what is the child capable of. I've had 15-year-olds that I would not want to take care of my cat.
Exactly.
But I've had some 8-year-olds who were perfectly able to pour a bowl of cereal, that could lock the door, that
they know what to do in a case of emergency.
Absolutely.
Right.
It really depends on that.
And a lot of that boils back to the parents.
Sure.
Yeah. So if the parents are responsible, then the kids are much more likely to be responsible. But we have a lot of unresponsible parents, I think.
I think we have a lot of people who want to do the right thing, and they're just not sure what that looks like. And that's where we can come in and we can help.
So if people have a question or just an idea, they can just call you up and ask.
Absolutely. We would welcome that.
It's all anonymous. I mean, you don't. They don't have to give them their name, birthday, and social security number.
Nope.
Nope, not necessarily. I mean, they can if they want us to refer them to other people, but we have a release of information.
But it's the call the number. It's free information. Right?
Absolutely. Please call.
Start the conversation. I think sometimes that's all it is. People sometimes just want to be assured that they're doing the right thing, or it's not a problem, or maybe it is a problem. They just want to know. So I was surprised too. What about what do you do with all these kids that you mentioned in Child Protective Services? What happens to them?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So, generally speaking, our first goal is always to keep them in the home. And sometimes that might look like we will petition the court to compel them via a court order to participate in our services.
Right.
If that doesn't work, we're going to look for kinship. The code specifically says you have to look for families, including grandparents. Grandparents is written there specifically so that you might become a kinship foster family.
Okay.
If you do not have any suitable or willing family, if it is absolutely unsafe for the child to be at home, then we're looking at foster care. I brought some numbers with me. As of February 2021, in Virginia, there were 5,240 children in foster care. And out of those, 57%, 2,964, were in homes that were not kinship homes, that were resource family homes. And that's from birth to 17 years. A lot of people think, this is, picking up babies from the hospital. The average age of kids in foster care is between 5 and 10 years old.
Wow.
School-age children.
Wow.
So a lot of people, I just brought the frequently asked questions on being a foster parent.
Sure.
Are single people able to be a foster parent? Absolutely. You can be single, married, divorced, widowed. We do not discriminate on culture, religion, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or domestic partnership status. You absolutely can have a job. We will help you pay for childcare so that you can work. You can only have so many kids in the home at once. Right now it's 6. It used to be 8. Now it's 6.
Some people, I heard years ago, they were turning the foster system into a racket. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, if you're in foster care to make money, you're in the wrong job.
So what you're looking for is a person with the right attitude and mindset that really wants to do it.
Mindset's absolutely the number one, because the point of foster care is always reunification. People are like, well, I think I'd like to be a foster parent, but I'm not sure that I want to deal with the birth parents. Then this probably isn't right for you.
Right.
You have to be able to be willing and to work with the biological parents towards reunification, if at all possible.
How long do typically kids stay in foster care?
It's really hard to say. So when you come into foster care, you have what's called a dispositional hearing, and that's usually 60 days after the removal. And then you have a foster care review, which is in 4 months. We really want to see, basically you have to, what I say, fish or cut bait. 12 to 15 months, the court's going to be asking, is this child able to go home, or do we need to look at alternative permanency goals? Wow. So we don't want kids lingering. We want them, but we also have to have the parents, the situation didn't happen in 4 months. It's probably not going to resolve in 4 months.
Yeah. That's what happened. So the stuff we see on TV isn't always true?
No, it is not. And when you're watching Law and Order,
we solved the whole family problem in 60 minutes with commercials.
If only. Sometimes we've had. It's not always abuse or neglect that can put a child in foster care. We've had parents that have unfortunately passed away. And then, we're looking for families, or we have families that had, physical or mental incapacities come upon them. Right. There's all sorts of reasons. One thing that has been great, and I made a little copy for you.
There you go. Fosterva.com.
It's fosterva.com. It's now called the Families Faster Highway, and it's a website by the Virginia Department of Social Services at the state level, the Commonwealth level.
Excuse me.
That you can log on and register, and it will screen you for, are you suitable to be a foster parent? Is this, are you understanding what the requirements are? Can you meet those requirements? It's like a fast track to becoming a foster parent.
So if you really want to know what's going on, if you really
Absolutely.
think you want to be a foster parent, go to fosterva.com.
Fosterva.com.
You can fill out a little survey, basically. And
Yes.
answer the questions, and it'll go, no.
Or you could come to our Every Child Matters Jubilee on Saturday.
Wow, that's this Saturday.
It's this Saturday,
Where's
the
that
15th, at our office, 465 15th Street.
Okay.
Our track, because it's the old middle school.
Right.
So our track, we're going to have, the police are going to be there, PD and Sheriff's Office. Bikers Against Child Abuse will be there. We'll have a petting zoo, a bounce house. It's free for the family. Right. And we'll also have these flyers that talk about how to be a foster care parent and have this nifty QR code that you can scan.
Takes you to fosterva.com.
Absolutely. We catapulted right into the 21st century here at Warren County.
Right on top of things, just like TV. I mean,
that's right.
It's really a shame that we've come this far, but we do have protections, and we do have organizations in our state that are trying to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
But it really involves down to participation. And you mentioned about families not being able to find it. We're so mobile. It's kind of like our homeless situation. You're thinking, well, don't these people have family? They do, but most of them have just wore their family out.
Or they're embarrassed to ask for help.
They are.
Yes.
Or in the same way with the kids, the parents, they already have their own issues. They can't take on more. They've done put up with the kids, their kids, and the grandkids, and it just...
Or they're raising grandchildren. We've come across that often where I'd love to take the new baby, but I already have 4 of the other babies.
Right. I can remember years ago, a gentleman was a school teacher up in Shenandoah in Frederick County, and he taught 5th grade, and he said about 80% of his kids are being raised by grandparents in his class, and that was 20 years ago.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So I can imagine there's no license to be a parent. You know what I mean?
There isn't. And that's kinship foster care is. It's called Kin First. We're trying to build a Kin First culture.
Right.
One of the things that we found is that families were like, "I'd love to take on." Rachel's younger than my kids, so I'd love to take on Rachel, but it's going to be a financial burden for me. So now we can take families, we can teach them how to be a foster parent, give them education on trauma-informed care because these kids have been through it.
Exactly.
And then they can get help with the maintenance. They can, they'll be eligible for Medicaid, so they can help pay for that. They can get child care reimbursement, so that we're trying to take away that barrier, because the big thing is we want to keep kids home. Right now, we don't have a lot of foster parents in the neighborhood in Warren County in general.
So we need more foster parents.
Absolutely, because we're sending our kids to other localities.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you like to keep them in the same school, in the same
Absolutely.
county?
It makes reunification faster.
Okay.
It's better on the child. It's cheaper.
Right.
Much cheaper for the county. But basically, it's better for the child. Yeah, we're already uprooting them from their parents. For good or for ill, those are their parents, and that's where they want to be.
Sure.
And now we're going to, they're already going through it. Now we're going to send them to a new school. We're giving them services that when they do reunify, they're going to have to stop and change to a new provider. It's just much more in the best interest of the community and the child. Because I'll tell you, when kids age out of foster care, they come home.
Yeah.
And we'd much rather keep them home and have them really build those connections within the community, because otherwise they turn 18 and they come home anyway.
Right. So do we have programs where the parents that their children have been taken away, that they're constantly being in programs where they're trying to get their kids back, so kids aren't completely isolated, they have visitations?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so that's great. So it's like you say, family first.
Yes.
That's what life's about, and that's really a shame because of our mobile society we have. We don't have, we're not growing up across the street and all our kids are living a block away or next door,
But we're using those tools to build community. One thing that the pandemic was good about, if I can even say that, but it used to be like, for example, virtual therapy. No one liked it.
Right.
kids do really well with that. These young kids, they grew up with that.
I bet you have an app for that, don't you?
Yes, they do. And it's made us able to provide these services in real time, immediately, whereas a face-to-face traditional therapy, there might be a 6-month waiting list.
That's the thing. You make an appointment with the specialist. The problem is today. Yeah. Not 6 months. It's like you make a doctor's appointment. I got this pain. Well, I can't see you for 3 weeks. Well, in 3 weeks, you're either dead or you're better.
Absolutely. And that's what's so great about, with our kids who are far away. They might be able to get in with someone local. It's virtual, but the kids do well with that. Our mental health liaison was talking about that.
The mobile phone, that's their thing. And they have no problem with it. Grandma.
That's how we can do this now.
That's right. Just click that and boom.
So it's not
I did
not
that
necessarily
yesterday.
bad.
I'm looking for the QR code and I get it on my phone and pop it right up, and it's great. And we live in an instant world now. We don't want to wait 6 weeks to do something. Yeah.
And time is of the essence when kids are either at risk of maltreatment or they're in care.
Right. Yes. And all sorts of, like say, these develop into mental problems and conditions that you carry with you your whole life.
And then you have children and you struggle with them and it becomes a generational trauma, they call it.
Right.
And, we're trying to nip that in the bud.
Well, April, what I'll do is I'll stick the website again here below the story.
Yes,
we'll take one of these little flyers here and we'll help you spread the word throughout Warren County.
And the Jubilee is this Saturday from 11 to 3 at the DSS building.
And it's free.
Yes.
We got any food?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
I'm sure we'll show up. Well, it's great, April, for you coming in. I appreciate it. And Rachel, too bad we don't have Michelle coming. Michelle Smeltzer, she always cons people into
That's right.
filling in, but she's great. And she does a lot. Her hat, I always say, people call me up, they need something. I said, I got Michelle's number on speed dial, And again,
she's got her finger on the pulse.
Well, there's a lot of resources in our county that people are, this is one of them, that people really aren't aware of. And everyone has some sort of family issues. You think, that...
Well, they think DSS is a bad guy and stuff like that. Don't get involved with DSS. But we're here as a resource. We're not here as the bad guy. Like April said, we're not here as a punitive thing. We're here as a resource.
Right. So it's like you have to reach out. You have to knock on the door so you can open it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming in, telling us about these things that are going on at the DSS.
Well, thank you for having us.
It's quite interesting, and it's too bad that we have it, but it's glad that we do. And we'll help publicize this Jubilee.
Yes, please.
This Saturday at the DSS headquarters. It's great meeting you. Thank you.
And you as well.